with fear. Freedom we hold dear knows that stay. Humble your hearts to God, safe from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will be.
Thanks for sharing your time with us today. We have got Mr. Nashville here today, and he's back with us, and it's Sheriff Daron Hall. Sheriff, glad to have you here.
Thank you, Lytle.
I appreciate you being here.
Love to be here. Happy to be here.
I don't know where I've told you this tonight. I guess I have. I should have. I appreciate your support for what we do in this ministry. You have really been a shot in our arm to help people understand that we are really doing what we say we're doing, and I appreciate that.
Well, Lytle, you're the one that the city, and I've said this in your presence before and outside of it, but you know, in what we do, I mean, we have nearly 1,000 empty beds today in our system. Some, as we like to say, the lights are turned off, doors are locked, and a part of that is a large part of that is because there are people in the community helping the men and women that are coming out of our system. And we've always taken pride, I think, in trying to do some good things while they're with us. We work hard, I think, at trying to break down some of the barriers that are there. But we don't have a lot to do once the door opens. We need someone in a community like Inner City that's sitting there saying, look, we want to help these men and women coming out so they don't come back to our institutions. And so it's saving us the dollars and cents out of it. But I have 2 young sons I want to hopefully stay in Nashville and live one of these days. And I want Nashville to be a place that doesn't need all these jail beds. It just seems to be what we should all want.
That is so good. And I know that's the way you feel, because you definitely, and I won't say this up front, I don't care what we talk about, but I want to say that you have a passion to help people. Wow. And you could be a minister anywhere, because I've heard you speak. I mean, you're gifted, you've got skills, and you lead people. And that's the reason I referred to you as Mr. Nashville. Everywhere I go, I never hear a bad word about you. And we are proud of that in Nashville. I'm proud of the way you work with the police department. I'm proud of the way you work with the metro government. Makes Nashville a good place to be, and every boy and girl in Nashville needs a safe place to lay down and go to sleep at night, and you're working toward that, and I appreciate that. And all of us in Nashville appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I grew up, as you know, I grew up here in Nashville. My dad was in the city council back when I was a young person, and I always wondered, what does the word metro mean? And you know, again, I grew up in it. It's all you knew, and I didn't know a different way of governing, I guess. And since I haven't been in this job and been around for a long time, I've been able to go. I just got back last night from San Antonio, and on some work stuff. And one of the things that you fail to appreciate when you grow up in just Metro and just Nashville is how good our government really works. And
I know that's what you're going to say.
Neat system. I mean, I really think it's the best I've seen. I was in Louisville just a few weeks back, and there's a lot of friction in a lot of governments about where the lines of responsibilities are, and I'm just very proud of it. And again, I think it's the way. We're celebrating the 50th year of Metro government in 2013 coming up, and sometimes it takes getting away to see another government to appreciate how important those relationships are. And
they don't just happen.
No,
it takes people of character that has a common cause to make that happen, and we've got it here.
We do. We do, and I tell you, I go back 23, 24 years, and it hasn't always been that way, and I can remember some bumpy times, but when you're talking about jobs as important as the chief of police, and I think as the sheriff's office is, the district attorney's office, and all these different entities that I think are dealing with you know, lots of people and families and lives, and really the community as a whole. I think the jobs are hard enough. Why are we going to try to make each other, you know, the stress of one another? And I think we've been very lucky. Our mayors and our cities, I think, done a pretty good job over the years at trying to keep those things in place. Last night I noticed the city council selected a new juvenile judge here. Well, I'm sure that'll work out very well. But the transitions of all these positions, we've changed many elected officials over the last several months in Nashville. Some on their own, and some have been moved on, if you will. And I think the election process has been healthy too. I think the voters have done a really good job in the diversity back issues and trying to select people across the board. I think have done a good job.
That juvenile court selection, they couldn't make a bad choice.
No.
I wrote the councilman and tell them who I was supporting, but you're not going to make a bad choice. And that's the good thing about Nashville. you know, you got a good choice. Either way you go, you're going to do okay. You got a good choice.
Well, the kids in the juvenile court, the kids are the important thing. I mean, we need an effective judge and leader, don't get me wrong, but if we keep our eyes on the prize, then it really doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as you'll get in there and lead your way, I think we will do fine. And I agree, all three of these people are friends of mine. I think we'll do a good job, any of them, but I think it'll be fine.
Now, the Supreme Court of Tennessee, I understand, waded in on the boundaries between you and the police department, the sheriff's department. Talk about that and help people be informed about, they cleared up some things, what I understand.
Yeah, Lido, it's interesting. You know, 1963, the charter was written, and I've read it a million times, I think, and it's a little bit like the Bible. I mean, there's some language in it that has been interpreted in various ways over the years, and for as long as I've been around, there's been questions about what is the line of responsibility between the sheriff and the police chief. I tell
That's
people,
because of metro government.
Because of metro government,
not
yeah.
county and...
Right, you drive right over the county line, and what separates the duties in Wilson County is a line in the street. You're the county sheriff, and I'm the city police chief.
Yeah.
Well, when you remove the county line, there's just one county, and so there is no line of responsibility. It's all in this document called the charter. And so, right after the charter was formed in '63, Sheriff Poe, who was in office at the time, challenged the charter and said, look, I don't understand what my authority is. And so the Supreme Court back then, or the court back then, ruled on some very narrow things. It just explained certain things you could and couldn't do. But it really didn't talk about the overall responsibility of the sheriff and the police chief. So really, the city has lived for 40 plus years with this one ruling and tried to kind of work its way over the years. And again, thank goodness the relationships are pretty strong because it never really became a big issue. What I find fascinating is what brought this case to a head is, as you know, I've been challenged in about every courtroom there is in the subject of immigration. And we had one of our favorite lawyers who sues us on everything we do. He's thrown enough at the wall. One day something might stick, but
he's your favorite.
Yeah, he is there. That's what he gets paid to do, I guess. But he challenged us on having the authority to do it, immigration. Which was a federal contract, by the way, and we were very comfortable that that was legal. But when he challenged that, it ends up in the Supreme Court, and so the Supreme Court now has in front of it a question about, well, where is the line of the sheriff? So we got the ruling back just a few weeks back, and the court is very clear that the charter didn't take away authority from the sheriff at all. It just makes the chief of police the principal, one of the main or the main law enforcement officials, and the sheriff will remain one of those principal conservators or piece, but not the main one, not the only one. And so the good news is there's never been any friction between us, but now whoever the sheriff's going to be from here on, and the lawyers that want to challenge everything we do, it's pretty clear that we have the same law enforcement authority. That's the actual document. It says the sheriff has all law enforcement authority in Nashville. So now what that means, though, is our officers aren't trained today to pull people over, to investigate crimes and so forth. We do a lot of serving of warrants. We do a lot of work out in the community, and it means that we could legally be trained and start into that capacity. But I think that would only be, as long as I'm here, that would only be in an agreement with the police department, finding ways where we could save money and reduce some duplication. People don't know this, but we're serving a civil warrant. We're knocking on your door today to serve a notice of a garnishment or a divorce paper on you. You may be wanted for shoplifting and wanted for burglary, and we don't have that warrant. It's always puzzled me if I'm knocking on the door to say, well, Mr. Thomas, I have
everything.
Yeah, why don't we just get this done all at one time? It'd save the police time and us time. So there's one way that I think we could really improve. People don't realize this. There's 110 accidents a day in Nashville, car accidents.
Is that right?
110 a day.
That's reported.
That's reported, and people are actually having to fill out papers and do all that. Well, you and I are paying a police officer to sit there and fill out all that work. Well, we have officers in the streets that don't have that training to just fill out the paperwork. It's not that hard to do. So if we're out there doing this other work, why couldn't we find a way, if there's an accident, we're in that area, it would shorten the time, it would improve, I think, the overall efficiency.
Do y'all monitor each other's radio channels?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's that's we do not communicate. We can go to we can all move to a channel and communicate directly. We do that in emergencies and so forth. But we have access to all scans and goes through. But the good news is the chief of police now, Chief Anderson and Surpass, every one of these people, we've gotten along very well, I think, over the years. But it's time now. The court has said, look, there's no reason why you can't knock on the door and basically perform both functions for one another. And I just think that's the way we need to go. It saves the city money.
So
it's a better way
will
to
save
do
the city a lot of money and a lot of time,
Right.
and keep police officers on the street.
Yeah, like we had an officer killed in 1996, and one of the things that, you know, he was serving an eviction notice, knocking on the door. Well, his name,
that on Wheeler?
It was over off Wheeler by Glencliff High School, and just a tragic situation. And his name is on the wall as a law enforcement officer in Washington and in Nashville, and was treated as he should have been, with full respect of being in line of duty death. But one of the things that I think we've often forgotten over the years is that those people that are doing that for us right now, they're out all over Nashville doing it, are often, this is kind of a picky thing, but even the law says that they can't have a blue light if they're not law enforcement officers. Well, we're law enforcement officers, of course, now tell us that, so we need to have blue lights put in our system, make sure that they're protected when they're in the community doing that. And I mean, I get calls often at the office saying, hey, there was an accident on the street and one of your cars drove right by and didn't stop. Now, what our policy says is it will radio, we'll notify the police, emergency equipment will stay on site. But we didn't have the criminal law enforcement authority until this court just ruled, where we could stop if there's marijuana in the back seat or something and actually enforce the law. So it's always been a fuzzy area right there, and I think our staff need the protection that when they're out there they need to do their job, but have the court and the law on their side. And so we're very happy with the ruling, and probably should thank our attorney friend who brought it to a head for us.
Hey, I can see this playing out and saving the city, like the deal you had where you have a mobile
booking.
jail, booking, what do you call it, booking trailer?
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
You know, Lytle, that's a really good example of where, you know, I was at the football game the other night, the Titans game, and some knucklehead got down on the field and started running around. They tackled him. You know, you never see that on TV, but sure enough, it was a fan who was acting out.
One of my people with it.
Well, they were a Steeler fan. I noticed that.
Okay,
I don't know if that
people.
matters, but they tackled him. They were taking him out. And I had my sons were both there, and they're all nervous. Well, where are they going? Where are they going? Well, what was fascinating to me was we have a mobile booking unit parked right outside the stadium, and if we didn't have that, those police officers would be tied up driving, getting in their cars, driving across the bridge, believe it or not, taking 2 or 3 hours just to get, and they wouldn't be able to come right back. They were literally back in the stadium as soon as they can walk out the door, hand him to us, and then we're there. And that happens every night right now. We're all in the community with our mobile unit where the police do not have to come to downtown and drop off prisoners. And
how many units we have?
We have one in the field. We have one on its way. We have the staff for it already prepared and being trained, and then the equipment, have the money approved. It just needs to deliver it. We think that'll be within 6 months, and we'll have, and 50% of the county will be covered by each. And probably after I'm gone, I mean, I've envisioned that being.
You going somewhere?
Well, I hope one of these days. I hope I go to a good place. I hope I go to a good place.
You're going to heavens.
I hope so. I surely hope so. But it's Nashville can't afford to centralize a function like booking. Most cities either build.
And it's going to get worse.
It is. I mean,
the demand's going to be longer and longer.
Yeah, your cars don't need to be coming downtown. You don't need, you know, if you're out in the Antioch area and making an arrest.
It's a long way.
It is. And
it's
it
a long way.
ties up everything.
I-24 tied up.
Right. That's my old stomping ground.
Yeah.
So we used to think of Nashville as downtown was a long, long way. You know?
It was another world. Now that kind of stuff is where government works together, and that's what the Supreme Court ruling is going to be able to do. Because I can see you at somewhere down the roads, y'all starting to handle more accidents.
Yeah.
And you personally have saved. I don't know how many dollars it is. Carla could probably tell me how many dollars it is, but you saved the metro government by your initiative, your positive thinking, and making these kind of decisions. That booking lab. I don't know how many dollars that saves, and nobody may know, but that saves a lot of money.
It is, and you know what? What really it does too, on top of the money, and I mean, I'll give you a good number here. To book a person, if in the old way, from Antioch to downtown was about 3 hours. I mean, from driving time, getting in line, waiting your turn, and getting back in zone in Antioch is about 3 hours. The booking unit,
if it goes good,
right, and that's not on a Friday night
right.
when everybody's not on their best behavior and lines long. You take about a 3 hour average, it's down to 23 minutes. So we're talking
Well,
about you can drive, drop the person off, be back in zone in 23 minutes. It's dollars and cents, but it's also an officer in your neighborhood driving around.
There's no way to monitor what that savings is
Right.
when you got a, because if he's there and can prevent and pick up the right person and prevent a robbery or
That's right.
home invasion or some family being hurt, man, that gets priceless all of a sudden.
And you know, the police officers, again, I grew up with a lot of these guys. I mean, I've always felt a part of the police family, and they really like it because, you know, that's what they want to do. Feel like when they went home at night, they helped their community, and you're not helping your community if you're standing in line in the booking room. And so I think it's a win-win.
I think you just described what I've been looking for to describe Nashville's government, and you said family. In my dealings, which are very limited, I mean, you know, I'm over here in the dungeon spending most of my time down here in the ghetto, but when I'm around the city fathers and the leaders like yourself and Chief Anderson and so forth, I really get a sense of a family relationship. And that's the edge Nashville has that other cities don't have.
You know, there's a lot of pieces. The mayor has a meeting every month, and the DA and the police chief, myself, and the judge, the elected judge that represents them, and we all sit around. What's interesting is I won't ever forget years ago, Chief Kirshner was the police chief at the time, and we were overcrowded. The jails were way overcrowded. The mayor was Mayor Bredesen at the time. We're all in these meetings, and we're struggling because we don't have the beds. The police are struggling because this community was screaming, we need more, you know, police. And the mayor was politically struggling with how to handle all this. And so I remember the chief of police said, you know, and Chief Kirshner in his own way said, well, if you're asking me, Mayor, to just not arrest anybody over the next couple of days, I'll do that, you know, to help the system. and he was being honest, but you think about what he was really, he didn't want to be the problem, and we're sitting there going, we just don't have the beds, and the mayor was saying, well, what do you need? And we were trying to find extra beds, but the point is, in a lot of cities, number one, they wouldn't even meet.
Right.
I mean, these entities don't get along. And number two, I can't imagine a chief of police really trying to help the problem by saying, look, and I'll give us credit too. I mean, we want to be an asset to the police department, and so for us to pack up our booking room and move it into the community was to help them stay active in the community and move a function that we've always performed. And I think as long as those lines don't get blurred, and I don't think they will anytime soon.
Not with the leadership we have.
I don't think so either.
Between you and Anderson, you'll keep those lines from being, because you're going to work for what's betterment of Nashville.
I think so too.
Yeah, I know that'll happen. If you were out there, what's our future? What do you see as a future of law enforcement or the sheriff's department? Is there something? It may not be a fair question. Is there something out there that is looming that you could snap your finger and get that you'd like to have? Is that a fair question?
You know, to me, and this word always intimidates me a little, I think the technology is what worries me. I mean, you know, we deal with it on people don't think about this, but we deal with cell phones. Now, people don't realize this, but
it's changed the way we do things. It's changed the way we run our buses. It's changed the way we deal with children.
You've got such an access as a parent. You've got all this going on. I find myself dealing with my kids with the phone, and we get to work, and there's a couple of different things. Number one, we don't want the inmates to have access to cell phones, because there's a lot of risk associated. Hey, I'm on my way to the dentist. I've got a court today. I'm going, and I'm talking about the higher risk inmates, obviously. But there's a danger, and we don't want that part. And then there's this other. You know, now the phone is not just a phone. I can get on there and I can look up how to make a bomb while I'm in the jail.
Yeah.
I mean, and just if you just take that as a small concern, and by the way, there's legislation federally to have correctional facilities basically have a block where cell phones won't work to help us do our job. The problem with that, our staff need cell phones sometimes, and so you can't find a perfect way to make it work. But if you just take cell phones, something that you and I are used to right now, and how it's impacted our life, the thing that worries me in the business that we're in is there's one more step out there. I don't know if it's Twitter, I don't do that, but there's a Facebook and there's a Twitter. Well, that is almost a daily thing we're managing now with our staff, with our you know, whether it's, I just heard somebody over the weekend talk about going on looking at someone's Facebook before they hired them or something. Mm-hmm. That whole world scares me, because I believe, you know, whether it's my teenagers that I watch and the risk associated with the computers and all that, but it's access to the information, and it's putting law enforcement at risk, I think, in ways. I mean, you and I can go hit a button down here and learn how to make any drug we want to make and use it by noon, and that wasn't around when I was a kid. I mean, you had to grow it if you knew anything about it, and you had to go find someone who had it. Well, now I mean, you flip a YouTube on and watch them, they'll show you how to get high on just about any household product.
My 10-year-old gets my phone, and we got an ongoing war in the house because I go to sleep, she'll come get my phone and be going through it and exposed to everything. So I had a Dr. Ann Hudgens work with me and said, with television, we invited the devil into the house. With computers and cell phones, we've invited the devil into our children's bedroom.
I believe it.
And that is scary.
I believe it.
And the thing about what makes it so bad, Darren, is in my case, the 10-year-old's much smarter than I am.
Me too. Me too.
I was having a problem with my phone, and I was out in the public somewhere, and I said, "Hey, kid, come here."
Yeah, show me what to do.
And he took, "Oh, here you go, thank you, sir." He went on his way.
And I think that's what makes this generation. I mean, I have a 10-year-old son myself, and that's exactly. I mean, he can take my phone, and I don't want him to know it. That I'm totally ignorant to a lot of what he's doing.
He knows, don't worry.
But that generation is going to be so much more advanced, and if you just take that a little bit further to the streets, it's going to be, and I don't think that challenge was around at the same level with my parents trying to figure out, how they're going to keep me from doing what I shouldn't have been doing. Well, today, the technology gives them access. They know how to use it better than we do. They can see things they shouldn't be seeing at a much different time. And literally, I think back on my teenage years or even younger, and if someone said, "Hey, how do we," and you just fill in the blank, and you go on there and just type it in, how to do this, it makes you feel funny, or try that, and I can just feel, and I don't know how we ever get it back in the bottle. I think that's a real risk for law enforcement. How do you get that?
And I understand what you're talking about, because when we have a bus, it's out at Learning Center, and they got 45, 50 interstate children on it. And one little fella gets out of control, and they set him down, and they put somebody with him one-on-one and all that. He'll take his cell phone out of his pocket and key in and tell him, "I'm having a problem on the bus." And when the bus gets back to the community, you got half the neighborhood lined up. What's going on? You're at riot stage right now.
Right.
And so that changes the whole format of how you do things. And I've gotten calls from inmates in prison on cell phone, call me.
Yeah.
And what are you doing with the phone?
Yeah,
so I can see where it's going to cause you real problems.
I mean, it's everywhere. We hire about 4 classes a year of officers, about 25 to 30 each time, and this past class we have a rule that says when you come to training, you leave your phone. It's over here. Don't use your phone, because we do testing. We don't want you looking up answers, but we also want you to be focused on what we're doing.
Get all the answers.
Right. They could. So what happened right in the middle of this? We did in 6 weeks long training, but one day we did a surprise, search of everything, and 3 of them with a phone in the group. Well, you can't work here. If you can't follow the rules in training, you're not going to follow the rules when you get out.
They'll get you sued up 6 ways for doing it.
And I have a teenage son as well, and at their school you can't have your phone on, you can't use it, And I find this interesting. What the school will do is they'll walk by, and I think this is pretty smart, and borrow your phone. Let me see your phone, see if it's on. Well, let's say Lytle's phone is on or not. Well, they'll turn it on and then type any other name on the list and just say, "Hey, how's it going?" And what if that person responds, their phone's on. So it's just kind of a constant policing of this technology that everyone's under. So
something Metro Police does and it does it well, I think, in having these resource officers in the school.
Yep.
Because it helps improve the relationship between police department. We don't have this a lot in Nashville. I'm seeing less and less of resentment between authority, and police department, sheriff's department, and population. I see a coming together, and I credit you and Anderson and the whole police department and sheriff's department. Because when I go into jails to visit, your people treat me with utmost respect, and they don't know me from Adam.
Well,
but they treat me the way that you want to be treated when you go in a place.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I think the critical part is jails and law enforcement are really just an extension of the community, and we should always remember that's who pay us to do our job.
And the community needs to understand that.
That's right.
See, there's this old, what I call the redneck philosophy is lock them up and throw away the key and forget about your fellow man. And bottom line is, part of them got caught, part of us didn't get caught, and that's a lot more realistic observation than what the public out there, the church-going public, wants to admit. And so there's good people that's incarcerated.
I think, we
ain't got 3 minutes.
I think the community is smarter. The smarter communities figure that out. crime doesn't happen on certain streets. It doesn't happen to certain people. It's really a broad spectrum. When you're talking about the drugs and the alcohol and stuff that impacts people, it doesn't discriminate. You know, it's a pretty broad spectrum. And I think when I grew up, my mind was as a kid that happened somewhere else. And what we need to realize is that's not really true. It happens everywhere, and we need to be mindful that that person is going to come back home. And how do we want that person to be when they return? We want them to be less likely to reoffend and the community safer.
I think that's your strong suit, is you want to arrest the problem when you get them in. You want to help the person. I think that's your strong suit, Sheriff. I mean, I think that's because you want to put a person back on the street in a neighborhood that's a healthy person.
Right.
That's not going to be a criminal in the community. Yesterday was over with. They've changed their behavior. And I think that's your real strong suit.
It's important. I mean, and like you said, a lot of it was luck and timing. The reason that people end up and the reasons maybe that I didn't end up in that way. I mean, I had a great family, and that's true, but I also made some mistakes and some decisions that they weren't very smart, and it could have easily landed me in a pathway that gets you here. And I don't
kids
want to
do
forget that. Right.
All kids do that. And what I feel so good about our city is, our city and with juvenile and everybody, if a kid makes a mistake, the people in authority are not ready to throw him away.
Right.
They're trying to rescue him and get him back. It's hard to fix stupid, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Get him back
That's
over
right.
here making a good decision. Now, if he's insistent on criminal behavior, and he's insistent, we've got one we're working with now, and he's gonna have to go away and pull some time because he's insistent that that's what he wants to do.
Right.
He's been misfed wrong information, and he don't think he's a man until he goes to prison. Right. And so we've worked with him, and it's just, he's going to have to pull some time to get his attention. Yeah. We got 1 minute, Daron. What do you want to say to the population of Nashville?
Well, I want to, first and foremost, and every time I get a chance, I want to thank you for what you do. The viewers may or may not know.
That's great.
You are our volunteer of the year a few years ago. You could get that every year if the rules would allow. You do a tremendous job working on our Sober Ride program we do, and helps, I think, keep the community much safer on the holiday season. And so we owe you a debt of gratitude as a sheriff's office. But as I tell people all over the country, we're resource rich. Nashville has people like you that make my job. It's fantastic. It's a great place to be, and just happy to be a part of it.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of our city, but all of our volunteers that work within your system to help people not go back to prison, and how you've opened your doors and said, come on in and let's work together in this, and that's been great. I appreciate you coming. Give my best to your family.
I will. You as well.
And you keep up the good work and help our city be a safer place. Folks, we are blessed to have this man and his team. Won't you, when you see him, tell him thank you.
Sometimes I hear feeling inside with fear. Freedom we hold dear, now is at stake. Humble your heart to God, safe from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise. Righteous me in the skies. I'm going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Well, troubles will soon be o'er, happy forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care, rising up in the skies, telling this world goodbye.